As wrestling fans for the last 10 months, we've been dying to know. We've been chomping at the bit to get any information at all regarding CM Punk and his departure from the WWE, and we don't get jack shit. Now we get blockbuster breaking news reports involving CM Punk every 3 days. He has been a busy little bee, hasn't he? The latest jaw-dropper from CM Punk's mouth is that he has signed a deal with the UFC. Can you fucking believe that? He's going to the UFC. You know, it's really funny how in CM Punk's podcast, when he was explaining his side of the story about leaving WWE, that he was really upset and very, very bothered by the fact that he never got a chance to main event a WrestleMania. And it was really one of the contributing factors that led to his departure. Well, guess what, CM Punk? If you have any success whatsoever in the UFC, you will get that WrestleMania main event. Because I just read on Twitter just a few minutes ago that the WWE has publicly wished you the best in your future endeavor. Of course you do, WWE. You now see the potential next Brock Lesnar out there. This guy, what Brock has done since he's come in, the type of contract and the schedule that he has worked has been highly successful for them. He's a big-time money draw, a special attraction, as Vince likes to call him. CM Punk could be that next guy. What if he goes off to do UFC for 4 years and he patches things up with the WWE, mends fences, and comes back into the WWE at age 40 and has a 5-year run before he retires? That is a very, very real possibility. CM Punk might get that WrestleMania main event. CM Punk might get those sponsors on his fighting shorts. All he has to do is succeed in the UFC. And you know what? GoodMicWork wishes him luck. Forget about professional wrestling for a minute. It's actually not about that. It's about CM Punk's latest job, and that is he is going to be a legitimate MMA fighter. It seems as if, just like his podcast with Colt Cabana, that feedback and reaction to this and opinions on this is very, very mixed. A lot of people think CM Punk is going to fail at this. A lot of people think he's going to get his ass kicked. A lot of people are rooting for him to get his ass kicked. But all I have to say to you is, why would you root against him? No matter what your feelings are on CM Punk, why in the world would you root against a professional wrestler, a guy that works in a form of entertainment that you love? Anytime a guy like that goes into a real fighting situation, you want, as a wrestling fan, for him to succeed, because people shit on pro wrestling. You know that. How often is somebody giving you a hard time for being a wrestling fan? Well, if our wrestlers start going over to real fighting and winning, that gives wrestling the credibility that it so desperately needs in this childish PG environment. So I, for one, wish CM Punk nothing but the best. I'm really rooting for his success. I hope he succeeds at this. I don't know. You know, if you had to ask me personally, this is just my opinion, CM Punk, you know, when you look at his early life and his childhood and how he grew up and came through wrestling, he's not the type of guy that I would expect to be an MMA fighter. But he does practice some mixed martial arts and jiu-jitsu, and he's trained with the Gracie family and stuff. So it's not like the guy is completely clueless, but I don't even know if he's ever been in a bar fight before. Now, I'm not trying to insinuate that the guy's not tough. I mean, he is a professional wrestler, and he's worked for a long time in the business and suffered many injuries and done his whole career virtually drug-free. Plus, he has a pretty hard physical style as well. So CM Punk, I'm sure the toughness is there. I'm sure his ability to absorb pain is there. But, you know, is he going to be able to compete with a lot of these guys that might have been doing it their whole lives? Some of these guys that get in that octagon, you know, have dreams of doing this since they were like 12 or 15 years old or whatever. So, you know, CM Punk is a very late bloomer. He's 36 years old. Obviously, he will not be a heavyweight, which is a shame because we had CM Punk versus Brock Lesnar at SummerSlam. Wouldn't it be cool if you could have, you know, that match on that level in two different companies? It would be amazing. But CM Punk will probably be what, a middleweight or a welterweight or whatever. And unfortunately, I suck at UFC. You know, a lot of people always ask me my opinions on UFC and some of its fighters, and I know the wrestling fans and the UFC fans, it's a crossover fan base, but unfortunately, you know what? I suck. I have a very limited knowledge of MMA. I don't dislike it, but I definitely don't follow it and don't have, you know, I don't have friends over to watch, you know, the UFC pay-per-views. To me, those things aren't that big of a deal. Now, I know the UFC is huge. I know they're beating the WWE in business. I have nothing against MMA at all, but I just personally don't watch it. I hardly know who anyone is. I know a few of the big names, you know, and I've seen some UFC stuff, but for the most part, I don't watch UFC or Bellator or any, whatever those fucking things are. I'm just not personally an MMA fan. And that's pretty rare. I would think that almost all the wrestling fans, you know, for the most part, are UFC fans as well, or MMA fans in general. And I have a ton of friends that don't give a shit about professional wrestling but love MMA, and they always try to talk to me about it, and I feel like such a moron because I don't know who the fuck they're talking about. I don't ever fucking watch it. I don't know how to explain it. To me, I just don't have any desire to watch two guys beat each other into a brutal, bloody fucking pulp. It makes me cringe to watch it. I don't like to see anybody get kicked in the fucking teeth or their arm broken or anything like that. I don't know why people get off on watching that stuff. People want to see somebody's arm get broken and the bone come fucking sticking out of the goddamn skin. To me, I puke when I see that shit. So I have no desire to see anybody's nose get busted open or teeth get knocked out or arm be cut in half. Like, I just don't want to see that. And I know I'm in the minority there. We're in a very animalistic society, and people just love to surround a cage and watch two people fucking fight to the death while drinking beer and cheering. To me, that's just very barbaric, and very caveman-ish, and I just think it's 2015. We need to grow the fuck up. But those guys get paid a ton of money, and there is an art form to it. I'm not knocking it because it's not just stupid, pointless violence like, say, an ECW would be when you're just driving guys through tables covered in barbed wire and tacks and flames. UFC, there actually is an art and a style to it, and it's exactly what it says. It's mixed martial arts. It takes, you can study a lot of different forms of fighting and incorporate all of that into your style, and I think that's what's cool about it. So there's a lot of things about UFC and about MMA that I do respect, but I just personally don't watch it, and I've tried. I don't know, it's different. It's not like the WWE. It's not like with professional wrestling. I can't get behind the characters because, for one thing, this is real, and as soon as you get behind somebody, they can get the complete shit kicked out of them, at the next pay-per-view and lose all of their steam and all of their momentum. So the fact that it's real, I think takes a lot of the drama away. Although UFC does do a good job with the drama, I think they have learned a lot from what the WWE has done as far as production styles and, video packages and things like that. They do a really good job making it dramatic, even though it is a real fight. And I think, UFC is far more, it's the new boxing. Boxing used to be the big thing. George Foreman and Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier and Mike Tyson and Evander Holyfield, that used to be wrestling's competition. Now nobody gives a fuck about boxing. It's all UFC. It's all MMA. It's a huge, highly successful form of entertainment that CM Punk is now diving into, and I hope he succeeds. Why in the world, I want to know, why would you wish for this guy to fail? If you are a true wrestling fan, why would you want anything but success for CM Punk? Like I said, I don't know enough about MMA to make any sort of a prediction here, but, I wouldn't think CM Punk is the type of guy, like I said earlier, that would get into MMA. I like that he's challenging himself because a lot of men just want to know, how will I stand up in a real fight against someone? Where do I stand? Am I as tough as I think I am? I want to give this thing a shot, and that's exactly what CM Punk is doing. He's giving it a shot, and he said he's in it full blown. This is his full-time job now. He's dedicating and focusing all of his energy onto his UFC career. I think he even said he was going to stay off of Twitter for a little while just because I know he's probably getting flooded with bullshit from fans, and I think he just doesn't want to deal with the negativity. So he seems really focused. He seems really into it, and he's going to give a go with this thing. And Dana White had said in an interview after the show, I believe, he said, yeah, CM Punk called me and wanted a shot. So I said, yeah, we'll give you a shot. That right there is the power of a name like CM Punk. All he has to do is make a telephone call to a guy like Dana White and say, hey, I'm CM Punk. I'm widely known in the professional wrestling game. I got a ton of controversy right now with the WWE. Of course, the UFC is going to want to bring him in. From what I understand, Dana White and Vince McMahon, they are on okay terms with each other. I think they've spoken a few times, and they're aware of each other. But at the end of the day, I don't care what WWE says, UFC is a competitor. I do believe that it is two completely different forms of entertainment, but the fan base is the same, and that's where it all lies. A lot of people who watch wrestling are aware of the UFC. So, big-time names are going to carry weight in both promotions, whether you're competition or not. And if the UFC is in competition, then why do you write in determination papers of CM Punk and Alberto Del Rio that they cannot go to the UFC? So the WWE needs to stop bullshitting themselves and needs to understand that, yes, your products are very, very, very different, but your fan base, you're competing for the same group of people almost. UFC isn't targeting as many kids, which is another reason everybody shits on WWE for the PG rating. I haven't brought up the PG rating in years, right? I used to defend that pretty hardcore back in the day, but what do you expect? UFC has taken over that 18 to 34-year-old demographic. They are killing it. UFC has just exploded in popularity in the last few years, so that's a fan base now that the WWE really can't compete with. So what are they doing? They're going with where the money is, and that's in the kids. You're not going to be able to sell sex and violence anymore because the UFC is already doing that and doing it well. What you're going to have to do, WWE, is sell the fucking teddy bears to the John Cena t-shirt wearing little 5-year-olds. So the overwhelming saturation of the product during the Attitude Era and during the WCW buyout, combined with wrestling tragedies and wrestling controversies, as well as severe post-Attitude Era burnout, the loss of huge icon stars like The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin. And then you combine that with this white-hot new form of entertainment, UFC, the WWE had to go in the direction that they went or they would fucking go out of business. So UFC, I think, deserves a lot of credit for their success. It has become a big-time entertainment draw, and it's been a place where WWE can actually take names from. The WWE should keep things on a level playing field, or keep things cool, that is, with UFC and Dana White. Try not to piss them off. I hope neither company pisses the other one off. I don't want them to get into a war. I would love to see these guys bounce some talent back and forth from time to time. That would be great. When Brock is done here in WWE after WrestleMania 31 and he goes back to UFC, which it looks like he may actually do, let him go there for a few fights. For 2 years, he can always come back, and so can CM Punk. And I mentioned earlier how the WWE might start smooching his ass a little bit. Well, they're definitely not going to be dragging his name through the mud. They're just going to swallow and eat what he said on the podcast, and everything that he said that was fucked up, I guess they're probably just going to let go. They're going to let it blow over. They're going to see how he does in UFC. And like I said, if Punk has any success at all he's got to do is win 2 fights. All he's got to do is do what Brock did. Then he can come back in for the ridiculous contract that he always bitched about that other guys had. So CM Punk can come back to the WWE one day for double the money and a third of the dates, if he so chooses. And then the other guys can bitch and complain when they have to put him over. And I got to tell you got to hand it to CM Punk. He knew that he had financial opportunities out there. He walked away from the WWE. I was the one that said the day after he walked out, when I came up and made that commentary, I said, you do not walk away from that much money. You have to be fucking insane to walk away not only from the type of money that CM Punk makes annually for the WWE, but the huge WrestleMania payday that he'll receive working with Triple H, not to mention the fact that he's the second biggest merchandise seller in the company. He's leaving millions of dollars on the table, all in the name of frustration. That must be an incredible amount of frustration. But CM Punk owns the rights to his name. He can open up his own fucking merchandise store and sell his own CM Punk shit, which is what he did. He can sign with somebody else. Once he takes the WWE to court, he wants to go to Japan, he wants to go do MMA, he can do whatever the fuck he wants, and he did. He signed with the UFC, and now he's got a huge lucrative deal with them. And when he's done with them, he can always go back to the WWE for more money. So CM Punk walking out on the WWE in the long run might actually make him more money in his life. So, we'll have to see how it all plays out. There's a very big possibility that everything I just said will not even happen, because CM Punk might get killed in the first 30 seconds of his first fight and never fight again. So it all remains to be seen. I think we are probably close to a year away from a CM Punk debut. I'm sure this guy has to train and really learn a lot, and learn a lot fast before he has his first match. And I'm hoping UFC throws somebody at him that sucks. Dana White says something to that effect in an interview. It's not like we're going to throw the kitchen sink at the guy. We're going to put him in there with somebody that's 1-0, 1-1, 2-1, shit like that. So hopefully it's somebody that CM Punk should be able to beat. And then once he gets a little bit better, has a couple of fights under his belt, that's when you give them a big opponent of some kind. And, the money they'd make for that will be through the roof. So CM Punk is going to do a lot for the UFC as far as, bringing an outside name with that much recognition in. And the UFC could very well do a lot for CM Punk. It could be a win-win. It could be a lose-lose. You just don't know. And I'm not going to be the type of guy, like a lot of you probably are going to be in the comments section, that's going to know right from the start. A lot of you are going to know 100% if CM Punk is going to fail or succeed. He's going to get his ass kicked in his first fight. Well, how do you fucking know that? First of all, you've never seen him fight, and you don't even know who his opponent is. What if his opponent sucks worse than him? So don't just automatically assume that CM Punk's going to get his ass kicked. He very well may not. You could be right, but nothing is a guarantee, and I hate it when people speak with such certainty that they just know right off the bat CM Punk's going to get his ass kicked. You have to wait and see first. You don't know dick. So in the meantime, if there are any big UFC fans out there listening to this and says, GoodMicWork, what the fuck is your problem? How can you not like MMA? Feel free to put videos or anything like that you want on my Twitter or Facebook page or whatever. Send me montages. Send me some of your favorite UFC moments, anything like that you want. I'll be happy to look at it more. But like I said, I'm not much of an MMA fan. I don't watch a lot of it. But when CM Punk has his first fight, you can damn well bet that I'll be tuning in. And I also want to apologize to all of you, because as a guy that has a semi-successful YouTube channel here with a lot of people listening to me, I feel like I should be more educated on the UFC product, and I am not, and for that I apologize. That's why so many of my commentaries are so heavily WWE in tone, because that's really all I watch these days. I am still, just the old washed-up wrestling fan that's just a casual observer. I hardly ever watch TNA. I hardly ever even watch NXT, which I need to get better at. And some UFC knowledge wouldn't hurt this channel either. So I will try to get better with some of that stuff. And will somebody please fill me in on where AJ Lee stands in all of this? I mean, we've heard the rumors of her possibly leaving, but with all of this CM Punk drama and the controversy and the buzz that all of this has created, don't forget, this guy's wife still works for the WWE. This guy's wife has to talk to Ryback and Triple H and anybody else that CM Punk might have drugged through the mud on that podcast. And not to mention, she's being publicly photographed in front of UFC banners, because she was with CM Punk at the UFC show when he made his big announcement. So I actually, just for AJ's sake, hope that she is in fact leaving, because otherwise it seems like she's in kind of a, just kind of an awkward spot. She's got to go to work every day, knowing that her husband, went on a public podcast and trashed a lot of her bosses, and a lot of her coworkers, and basically trashed the company she's working for as a whole. And then he signs with a direct competitor of the WWE and takes his wife along with him for the announcement. And, she's being photographed with him and all of that. So she's just got to feel like really awkward. So you got to think that these rumors are true. But the funny thing is I haven't heard anything about them. So if anybody out there knows what the fuck is going on with AJ Lee, please let me know. Is she out the door or not? I made a commentary about Vince McMahon on Stone Cold's podcast, a few days ago when he did that after Raw. But CM Punk came back up on Colt Cabana's podcast again to do their part 2 of their interview. And this was after the Vince interview. And CM Punk, of course, addressed Vince McMahon's apology on Stone Cold's podcast and called his bullshit. He said, nope, it's insincere and it's a publicity stunt and apology not accepted. Wow. CM Punk couldn't even accept Vince McMahon's apology. A lot of people agreed with CM Punk. Said, yeah, Vince McMahon, they knew damn well that they were firing him on his wedding day. Vince just wanted to make himself look better. I suppose that's possible. But when you think about what a clusterfuck things are in the WWE, CM Punk told story after story about when he would try to deal with somebody internally, how fucked up it all was. So why is it out of the realm of possibility that wires really did get crossed, behind the scenes and stuff that Vince really has nothing to do with? Vince doesn't personally send out. He doesn't lick the fucking envelope, put the stamp on it, and walk his fucking 69-year-old ass down to the post office and drop termination papers into the mailbox. He has people that do that for him. So I think it's very possible that it was a complete coincidence that he was fired on his wedding day, and if CM Punk does not want to believe that, all he has to do is listen to his own podcast, listen to what he was saying. WWE is fucked up behind the scenes, and they don't know what the hell's going on, and everybody has their heads directly up their asses. So I don't know who's telling the truth here, but it sounds like there could be credibility on both sides. So I guess we will just never know. But CM Punk was not impressed whatsoever by Vince McMahon's apology. So I guess these two sides are going to be, it's going to be a very long time before they're ever able to be in the same room again. Given Punk's age and given the type of business we're in professional wrestling and how we've literally seen everything, I think it would be impossible, no matter what CM Punk said in his last 2 podcasts, that there is no way we will ever see CM Punk back in the WWE again. I don't think we can confirm that just yet. His UFC career has a lot to do with whether or not he will come back to the WWE, because think about it. If he gets absolutely brutalized and gets the fucking shit kicked out of him in his first fight, he's not going to want to run right back to the WWE and start claiming he's the best in the world. He's going to want to fucking lick his wounds for a while and let all of that blow over before he ever comes back into professional wrestling. But if he's successful, like I said, you can never say never, because that's a payday and that's a schedule and that's a WrestleMania main event that CM Punk may not be able to turn down one day in the future. So just to put a final thought on the podcast, like I said, when I reviewed CM Punk on Colt Cabana's show and when I reviewed Vince on Stone Cold's show, there was a lot about both podcasts that I really liked, and there was a few things about both podcasts that I really did not like. When you look at CM Punk's podcast on Colt Cabana's show, I'm happy. I'm so glad that somebody out there had the balls to expose the WWE for their fucking nonsense and their fucking bullshit and for how they fucking treat people. And I'm also glad that there's someone out there that's not completely pussy-whipped by WWE and its management and their dream to be in professional wrestling. CM Punk does not need that shit. And he had the balls to stand up, voice his opinion and his frustration, and walk out of the company as a top guy. And that's where some people, don't agree with CM Punk. God, this guy is fucking complaining. He's working with Undertaker at WrestleMania. He's working with The Rock. He's working with Brock Lesnar. He holds the title for a year and a half almost. Even if he's not main eventing WrestleMania, he's still a semi-main event player making a ton of fucking money for the company and treated very well and always in a high-profile match on any pay-per-view or Raw. Always. And the guy still fucking complains. He's bitching about money, and he's got year-old royalty checks for $20,000 just laying under a fucking couch or something, so there's a lot of people that, don't understand his viewpoint, but it's his viewpoint. You're not in his shoes. He's just telling you his story from his perspective. You're not in his brain, so you cannot judge, what he should or should not do. He's doing what he wants to do, just like you would do, if you were in that situation. We all react differently to certain situations. A lot of you, if you were in CM Punk's shoes, you'd be perfectly fine with working with Triple H at WrestleMania. You would just be happy to be there and happy to be making the money you'd be making, and there was nothing at all wrong with that. CM Punk obviously is not that guy. I also didn't particularly care for, some of the mudslinging. I thought CM Punk, given the fact that it was 10 months, it didn't sound like he cooled off at all. It sounded like he was just as mad. As a matter of fact, in the second podcast that he did, even though there was really nothing noteworthy that came out of that podcast, he got himself a little bit fired up during that too. He started talking about something, and Colt Cabana had to calm him down. Like, okay, you're getting fired up. So CM Punk is still harboring a lot of just bad feelings towards the WWE. And even though I talk about them mending fences one day, you got to understand that this is in the very, very distant future, because CM Punk clearly is not even close to being over what the WWE did to him. So for people that want to say he came off as bitter, yeah, he might have a little bit. He may be bitter. He's just pissed off. I don't know if he's necessarily bitter. He's the one that walked out on them, and he's the one that's going to continue to make a lot of money in his life without those fuckers. So I don't know why he could be bitter. It's not like his life is ruined. I just think he's very upset, and he's still very angry about some of the bullshit that he had to deal with in his mind. And believe it or not, even though I'm not the biggest Ryback fan, I don't think it was cool for him to call him out like that and call him steroid guy and say he hurt me on purpose and all of that. There is two sides to every story. And I don't know much about Ryback, but I know one thing. He's actually been in the WWE longer than CM Punk. Am I right? The first time I remember seeing him was, I don't even remember when it was, but it was during that Tough Enough shit. I think he was in there with The Miz. I remember him being in the ring with Kurt Angle. So that was probably 2004, 2005. CM Punk, wasn't even under his developmental deal by that point. So Ryback has actually been with the company longer. So even though he's green, even though he's not that great in the ring, he's been training for fucking 10 years. So it's not like he's a rookie that a guy like CM Punk can take a piss on. Ryback has been working, for a long time in the business and developing himself and developing his character. He's not my favorite character, but, to automatically say he's a steroid guy, he might be, he might not. CM Punk needs proof of that. Before you call somebody out for a issue that serious, especially steroids, that's completely almost ruined baseball, that's had its issues in wrestling as well. If you want to throw an allegation out like that out there, you better have some concrete proof. Otherwise, you could be really damaging or tarnishing Ryback. If the guy's not on steroids and now people think he is because of a comment you made, so I think CM Punk should have shown some restraint in that department. Maybe he can bitch and complain about the WWE, but maybe use less names. I know as wrestling fans, we love that. It's juicy. We want to hear him mention people by name and who said what and who did what to who. We all want to hear that stuff, but from a professionalism standpoint, I think CM Punk, should have just left, for the most part, names out of it. And if he did want to bring names into it, he shouldn't have worked so hard to make them look bad, because it may not be the last time they see each other. Maybe we see a CM Punk versus Ryback match one day. And Ryback, I'm sure, eats sandwiches the size of CM Punk. So I, for one, would not want to talk shit publicly, about a guy that's 3 times bigger than me. It's just something that I wouldn't do. But CM Punk is scarred by what happened to him in the WWE, and still very angry about it. And that was made clear by the fact that he said fuck 309 times in that first podcast. So, I'm glad we finally got it out. I think it's so funny how we hear no CM Punk news at all for the whole year. And then right at the end of the year like this, it's one major announcement after another. So pretty amazing. If we would have said this last year, where were we in my commentaries at this time last year? Do you think if any of us would have said to ourselves 1 year from today, CM Punk would be in the UFC, anybody would think that has a possibility of being true? I sure as hell wouldn't have. I know we're dealing with not the greatest WWE product right now, But when you think about this year and some of the things that have transpired, it has not been a quiet year. You started off the year with a whole bunch of Daniel Bryan controversy and a return by Batista that the fans completely shit on. You know, WWE was on everybody's shit list in January and February, only for them to completely turn everything around, listen to the fans for the first time in a long time, and change up their WrestleMania plans and put Daniel Bryan in the main event and give him the title, push him to the moon, and have him defeat three of the biggest names in the history of professional wrestling. He gets the confetti, he gets the celebration, he gets the unbelievable WrestleMania moment on the 30th installment of the biggest show in WWE, the same show that the beloved streak of The Undertaker came to an abrupt end, you know, and shocked the entire wrestling world. I, for one, am still not over it, and it's been 9 months. The horrible turn of events involving Daniel Bryan and his glorious victory at WrestleMania 30, only for him to be injured and still be out to this very day. His title run never even got off the ground. That great moment that he had is completely meaningless. He had to hand over the titles and go have neck surgery, and he's still not recovered going into 2015, and we don't even know when he's going to be back. You have John Cena being completely squashed and demolished, you know, in the first squash match in main event pay-per-view history. John Cena, a guy that superheroes his way through every match, actually gets the complete shit kicked out of him and doesn't get 1 ounce of offense in at all. That's something we thought we would never see. Combine that with the CM Punk walkout back at the Royal Rumble, 10 months of silence, and then the entire story comes out around Thanksgiving of why he left and what happened, and then a few days after that, he signs with the UFC. Not to mention the launch of the WWE Network. Forgot all about that. So 2014, you know, as far as the modern era in wrestling goes, I think will be a very significant year. So, wow. Just wow. I'm pretty shocked about this CM Punk news, him going into the UFC, but I hope he does well. I really do. It should be fun to watch. It should be interesting. At least it's something to, you know, breathe some life into the backstage drama, you know, side of things and the IWC and wrestling world and dirt sheets and all of that. This CM Punk story is going to get a ton of press. It's trending all over the fucking place on Twitter. Nobody is shutting up about CM Punk and UFC. ESPN has even covered this. So, you know, it's a big deal. And I want CM Punk to succeed. I really do. And all of you motherfuckers should want him to succeed as well. So that is it for my third CM Punk related commentary in a row. My last 3 videos have all been about podcasts and announcements. So we will get things back to normal starting this week, hopefully after the Slammy Awards. So I'm out of here. Leave me all your thoughts and opinions on CM Punk below. I'd love to hear what you think, and have a great rest of your day. Until next time, peace.